Time for Forces Friday. Every Friday we like to look at our military, and we look at some of the issues that are challenging that space and some of the accomplishments. And we were talking, for instance, about the D-Day celebrations that are upcoming. Today, Erin O'Toole joins us, a Conservative MP, as well as a military veteran. He's also a parliamentary secretary to the Trade Minister. We're not going to talk trade, though, Erin, if you don't mind.
It's Forces Friday. We should talk our forces.
Absolutely, we should. And you have experience as a veteran. You talked about being a veteran before you actually got elected. What do you think are the big issues facing veterans right now?
I think the big issue certainly is dealing with the aftermath from Afghanistan. The men and women of the Canadian Forces, once again, when called upon, served in spectacular fashion. We have one of the best militaries in the world, pound for pound. And that was a challenging mission. You know, we were in Afghanistan, Pat, longer than any of our traditional wars, World War I, World War II, or Korea. And we're going to be dealing with some of the challenges from that. Some related to injuries or mental health issues, but also...
So this is PTSD and those
well,
kinds of things?
I call it broadly more operational stress injuries, because some soldiers will have, a clinical assessment of PTSD, but there's also operational stress injuries that impact the soldiers beyond a traditional diagnosis of PTSD.
What would that include?
There, anxiety, a whole range of issues, and this is the challenge with mental health issues more broadly that I worked on years before my election to Parliament as one of the founders of the True Patriot Love Foundation. PTSD, or operational stress injuries, present differently in every person. Some people can see the worst of war and not be affected. Others can be affected years later. Others can be affected by more minor things that some people might think are minor. There's really no textbook reason for developing the challenges of mental health. There's also no textbook solution. So some people react well in the traditional counseling session. Some people react well to programs with other veterans, reliving the issue or their main triggers. So we have to approach this challenge with resources, but also with new ways of looking at the problem.
Okay, in your experience, how often does it happen to somebody that's in the front line, getting shot at and, walking across IEDs and those kinds of things, as opposed to somebody that's more a support person in the military, might not have the immediate threat thrust upon them? And what are the percentages in the military?
This is an elusive concept. There's some that say that less than 10% will have a sort of mental injury, an operational stress injury. Some say that figure is more like 15%. And like I said, because there's a range of issues that men and women may struggle from, it's hard to assess. Are you only looking at diagnosed clinical cases? What about work, missing work or duty because of anxiety or other issues that may be attributable? And look, it's not just front lines. There are people that have been in support roles. When I was in the forces for 12 years, the first time I really heard or had PTSD or OSI counseling offered to me was after the crash of Swissair 111 in Nova Scotia, when the plane went down and Air Force and naval person, along with civilians and fishermen, responded to a horrific tragedy just off Peggy's Cove. And some people in my own Air Force squadron were affected. But I saw the Canadian Forces starting to adapt as far back as that to these realities. These issues are not new, Pat. It was called shell shock in previous wars. We're getting better at recognizing it. We're also getting better at eliminating the stigma. If there are men and women out there suffering from some of these issues, tell your buddy, tell your family. There are supports out there for you.
The aftermath is more than just illness, obviously. It's also getting them reintegrated into society. Is enough being done in that space?
There is some great stuff being done, but we've got to do more. In fact, I'm going to an event next week that I helped start a few years ago when I was working on Bay Street that is continuing now. It's a Robbie Burns night. They're Scotch, but it also brings together the charity sector in Toronto, helping our veterans. True Patriot Love Foundation, Wounded Warriors, Canada Company, a group called Treble Victor, which are our Bay Street veterans. And we're coming up right now with ways that more employers can find out about the benefit of hiring veterans. Royal Bank, for instance, started a special recruiting segment for veterans. You can get men and women that have remarkable leadership training, have worked under stress, have managed people in a real stress environment. And so companies, once they start understanding the benefits of that service, more of them will adjust their HR hiring practices to consider military experience on par with any other industry experience. So there's groups out there doing it. The Canadian government is doing it as well. We've got to do it even better, because there are the other part of the transition after Afghanistan is a number of men and women will be leaving the forces, and we have to make sure that that the government puts a priority on hiring them. We have done that as a government. We put the top priority for new jobs in the civil service for veterans, but also we've got to stimulate private sector to sort of say, hey, it's not just the right thing to hire a veteran, it's actually accretive to your bottom line. You'll do well.
Business.
Yeah.
Gina Phillips was the one who came up with this idea of Forces Friday, which I think is a brilliant idea. Gina, kudos to you.
Thank you, Pat.
What would you like to talk about here?
I would like to ask Mr. O'Toole about the use of guide dogs and how they can really help veterans with PTSD or anxiety, help just even having someone there to comfort you when you get upset. Now, we're seeing more and more of these service dogs being used by veterans, but the federal government currently doesn't cover the costs associated with caring for the dogs. And dogs can be pretty pricey, so I'm just curious what you think about, whether or not the government should step up and absorb these costs.
Wow.
Great question. And ironically, on my drive into the city today, I was talking to my friend Scott Matthews, Scott Maxwell, who runs the Wounded Warriors charity. And they've been doing a lot of work, not just with guide dogs, with actual therapy dogs that do a whole range of issues and actually work on anxiety. The pet can actually help a veteran, overcoming some of these issues. The federal government has said we think this is positive and it's being looked at seriously, and we actually want to work and partner with groups like Wounded Warriors and others across the country. There are little groups that have already been doing this, and you know what? Groups in the philanthropic sector can sometimes move a lot faster than the government. And when we see a good program in operation, like Wounded Warriors, we should partner, and it's been our intention, and we actually spoke about that in the last session, about supporting these programs once we find a way to do so in a uniform fashion across the country.
Gina asks great questions. Good work,
And
Gina.
great on Forces Friday. Thanks for starting it. And
No,
we're wearing red.
thank you. Yeah,
And
every
wearing
Friday.
red. Yes, she wears red every Friday. Gina, well done.
Thank you, guys.
Aaron, thank you for coming in. We'll get you back.
Thanks for your interest, Pat.
Yeah. Aaron O'Toole, Conservative MP, veteran, Parliamentary Secretary to the Trade Minister. Maybe we'll talk to him about trade next time we get him back. We're going to take a quick break and find out what Adrian's talking about in her Straight Talk. Don't go away.